Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever time you happen to be watching this, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to talk about Hang the Moon and how and why it ties into a research paper. Why would anybody ask people to read a novel and somehow use that novel as part of the research paper? And I hope I have two or three answers for you by the end of this presentation. Number one, as we go through here, as always, all the borrowed images and quoted text are used for educational purposes. This is not a monetized video. This is just an effort to help my students who can't make it to class have access to my lecture notes. Start with why Hang the Moon. And the first reason is that Jeanette Walls, I think, really impressed me as a writer with her memoir, The Glass Castle. It's the story of her growing up and the story of her getting her first jobs as a writer, coming out of poverty, having parents who were, I think I'll use the word eccentric to say the least. And it was just a very impressive, very well written memoir. And that memoir, I thought, was a revelation as to how a person's childhood can be escaped, for lack of a better word. And her quality as a novelist, I haven't read all of her novels, but according to this news report, she can send drafts to her editor on her own schedule, which means people respect her novels, people are willing to wait for her novels. So it struck me that somebody who could write about her own life and make that a compelling read could also make this a compelling read. I'll tie novels to research a little bit more, but that's why this particular novel is part of what we're going for. For the research paper, remember that the topic needs to connect to Hang the Moon. The proposal needs direct quotations from the novel. List the page number of the quotation on the proposal when you turn it in. We talked in class about dozens of broad topics. They're all going to work. Just make sure you limit the topic in the proposal. It can't be sports. It can't be medicine. It can't be baseball or anything, illegal drugs. It has to be narrowed down to fit a relatively short 6-page paper. Once again, just running through the rubric that a lot of things are going to go through, including research, character, conflict, connection, theme, coherent, concise, and cogent. Hang the Moon. Hang the Moon is going to deal a lot with the character. Sally is the narrator. As you look at the picture, there's a certain connection to the idea of a woman stepping out of what it was a traditional role, just like the Rosie the Riveter picture. However, I think there is a 21st century twist, like She Hulk, where we're moving beyond the 1920s when this novel is set. There are some attitudes that might be more 1999, 2024. Conflict. Conflict can be internal, conflict can be external. Connection. We're using the connection here to tie to the research paper, but I think as we go through this, there is going to be discussions of grief, there's going to be discussions of women's roles, there is going to be family conflicts that perhaps we can connect with. Theme, I think I'll wait for a future video to talk more about that, or a future lecture to talk more about that. And the three writing elements, concise, cogent, and coherent, we'll talk about those as we're going through and talking about editing and revising and one of the key elements of a composition class. But remember, I think we're talking about character, and we'll talk about how that character element ties to the research paper as well. And we're talking about A, a woman, B, escaping traditional roles, and C, having elements of the 1920s, the picture of Rosie's from the 1940s, obviously, and dealing with a 21st century twist, 21st century attitudes as well. Sally, as character and narrator, begins the book with this idea: the fastest girl in the world, that's what I'm going to be. Our job as a reader is she reliable? Does she follow through with that? Does it somehow tie to the entire theme of the book? Does it tie to the uh, plot of the book? And does she follow through so that we can see that she's a reliable narrator? Or is she just being a little girl at this moment in time, and she's going to stay sort of in that juvenile little girl role? Step one is always, who is providing us the information? Is this person reliable? And that'll tie to the research. I'll try to tie that up at the very end of the presentation. Characters reveal themselves through the thoughts. Sally here makes some statements about book smarts, people smarts, and people who have both. And in a lot of ways, like I said, I think Walls is drawing on a 21st century intelligence or 21st century view of intelligence that perhaps wasn't available in the 1920s. And I don't know necessarily if that's the case or not, but certainly we have this idea of multiple intelligences being expressed here, and Sally showing herself to be able to understand that she can understand people. And now we have to find out if she's more like the Duke or if she's a lot like Eddie and this is only a one off, or if she's like Tom and she's got the people smarts to know that she shouldn't show off her book smarts. The narrator should also observe for the readers. Anytime one sees a concept like justice or a word like justice used, one should ask, is this really justice? It's a philosophical question that's been debated for centuries, but I do think we need to take a look at when she says this is Kincaid justice and it's high handed, but it was sort of handled in a practical way. And she's using it, I think, as proof that the Duke definitely does have people smarts. Our first question should always be, is Kincaid justice actually justice? In this situation, a woman's husband was killed, and the widow gets married off almost immediately. These kinds of things, do they count as justice? The Duke forces her to marry somebody, and the Duke gives the guy she's forced to marry a job. Is that actually justice, or is that just being very pragmatic to try to keep everybody from, you know, going ballistic and creating a situation that will be even more difficult to deal with? So she makes the observation. We have to decide whether we agree whether it's high-handed or not, and we also have to decide whether we believe it's justice. Anytime we're looking at a character, we should look at others' observations. The Duke tells her she did well. And the Duke talks about her as somebody with pretty good vocabulary for an eighth grade education. So we get to wonder again about her book smarts because it's an eighth grade education. However, her vocabulary, an unobstructed view of the events that transpired, indicate, as the Duke says, it's beyond an eighth grade education. So now we're trying to figure out who is Sally, what kind of person is Sally. The Duke is giving us an observation, telling us what he thinks of her. She's pretty good with the vocabulary. She's pretty good at playing ball, doing what the Duke wants her to do, and she's going beyond an eighth grade education. In addition to looking at how others reveal themselves, it's important to see that characters are going to reveal themselves through statements and actions. In that same conversation with the Duke, she reveals that she has some people smarts. She did something he wanted, so now there can be a quid pro quo. She can get something from him. Second, she realizes that she reveals that she has some book smarts. She read, other people led her books, and second of all, she has this practical streak in her as well, or third, excuse me, she has this practical streak as well. She knows that she has to be careful about saying words she's read but never heard. If she wants people to treat her as somebody who has more than an eighth grade education, she can't be running around mispronouncing big words. So she's revealing that she has people smarts. She's revealing she's better educated in the sense of having read widely. And third, she is smart like Tom from an earlier slide. She's not going to reveal her intelligence and lord it over people. And she's smart enough also to not make mistakes that reveal that perhaps she isn't as intelligent as people would believe, or she wants people to believe, excuse me. Also, there's always physical descriptions. She describes Eddie with thin, pale hair. Plaid shirt is pressed. It doesn't seem to quite fit some of the situations with the people in the rest of the novel. We've got the dark circles under his eyes that look like bruises. The faint veins in his forehead, once again, indicate that he himself is probably pale. It's not just his hair. He's carrying Scientific American. He seems to be the epitome of the thin intellectual. And she follows it up. We kind of try to guess that he's the thin intellectual. Now she follows up and says he's frail. Our guess is confirmed by her statement. And he seems to be something of a know it all. She's backing up the comment she made earlier about he's got plenty of book smarts, but he doesn't have a lot of people smarts. He's always going to show people he's right. All right, how does all this connect to research? How does character development, whether it's through one's actions, whether it's through one's statements or thoughts that are revealed through the narrator, whether it's through other people's reactions to the narrator, whether it's through observations made by the narrator for the readers, how does that connect? All right, let's start. The narrator's reliability and the author's qualifications are part of the connection. If the author's qualifications match up and the narrator is reliable, we should believe what they have said. We should be able to follow through on what they've said and trust that it's all going to work out at the end. When we're asking them to reveal the thoughts, their own thoughts. Usually, the author of research will give you a clear thesis in the intro. Usually, it'll be restated in the conclusion with the idea of I'm following up and showing you what's happening here. I'm showing you that I've actually proven what I set out to prove. As one observes for the readers, that's the supporting details from the research. Are all of those details matching up with the thesis that the author is giving us? All right. Others' observations. Does other research support your source's conclusions? That clear thesis, the supporting details, the conclusion that your source gets to, does everybody else get to it? And revealing through statements and actions. All research should either be able to be duplicated, be verified, be falsified. That's what research is all about. So when we're looking at statements and actions, do they match up in the book? It's the same with the research. Can it be duplicated? Does it match up? Does it do what it says it can? Are others verifying it, or are others saying, hold it, it's not there? Is the researcher showing that this can be duplicated or that this can be falsified? We have spent centuries arguing about the existence of God. One of the reasons we're making that is it's impossible to falsify the existence of God. And any research to get to the existence of God is also impossible to duplicate. So, the point of this little diatribe here at the end is everything we do with a narrator and of making characters and developing plot details, those skills can easily transfer over to doing research. I just happen to think reading novels is a little more fun than making everybody do a bunch of research reading and trying to draw conclusions from that. One last thing. If you haven't bought the book yet, money probably isn't an excuse. As of today, this is the 25th of January. It's on sale as a Kindle book from Amazon for $2. In South Dakota, you're going to pay 7 cents sale or 7% sales tax or so. So you're looking at $2.15. The Kindle book will allow you to do some word searches to find the quotations for your proposal paper. So if you haven't bought the book yet, there's an easy and cheap way to get one. I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope everybody's having a good day, and I hope all of you to see all of you in class next class period.